Welcome back to the Djellab channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys are doing very well at home. It is a Friday, and so where else would I rather be than in the sports bar right off of Leicester Square, the Three Lanterns. If you're ever around here, please check it out. Joining me today, Ben Bowman. Welcome back. How are you doing, my good friend?
Very good, thanks, mate. Very good.
You count us good friends now? Good friends?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm not top five, but...
Wow.
Borderline.
Oh,
Borderline.
Getting there.
Kind of unnecessary,
I
but
like it. We are recording this
to rank.
yeah, rank everyone right now.
B tier.
Do I make it to the wedding?
Do a friends tier list.
Of course, this is being shot on Thursday. Later today, Chelsea versus Spurs. Keep me back, Pat. Keep me back. It will be interesting to see what happens there. Will Anne still be in a job? Yes. But will it be for 2 more weeks? We'll see. Padre Stratton, how are you doing? Where do I rank in your friend list?
I don't know.
Defo top 10.
Yeah, you think?
Defo.
Sure.
The thing is, you guys are too young for MySpace, where you actually did have to you did actually rank your friends. I think we should bring that back. You know, let's have a Lord of the Flies.
If we're doing ranking for everything else, let's do it for friends.
Let's do it.
Exactly.
Let's do it.
End of the episode.
Let's do it. Pat, your top 3 for me. Ben, your top 2.
Babe.
Okay.
What?
I'm taking that.
As you can see,
Jesus.
by the title of this video, we're going to be talking about players that need to leave your club. The way this is going to work is Patrick Van Straten is super agent. Patrick's enterprises have started. Me and Ben are going to be pitching 4 players to Pat, 1 defender, 1 midfielder, 1 forward, and then a surprise option. And Pat will have to pick who he takes on board. Now, obviously, giving Pat the name of an agent makes it sound a lot about like money and things like that. Now, of course, things like that will come into this. However, ultimately, it's about what player is the most interesting this summer. And we want to talk about them and their possible goings and maybe incomings. And also, one thing, if you're listening on Spotify, thank you so much for the great viewership we're building over there. I really, really do appreciate it. And we're changing the name. We're changing the name to Nothing But Football. Basically, I love the name Friday Feels. It's not great for SEO. It's not really good for search because it doesn't have the word football in it. So I'm changing the name to that in a couple of weeks' time, just so you're prepared in case it does change. But without further ado, Ben, you can kick things off with your first suggestion. Let's start with defender.
Start with defender. I found defender quite hard because I feel like there's a lot of the defender market's going to be quite interesting going into the summer. There's a lot of people that are going to be on the move. In terms of someone that maybe needs to leave their club to be a little bit more aspirational in terms of progressing in their career, I feel a bit bad about this, but I'm going to say Jarrad Branthwaite. And I'd actually quite like him to stay at Everton because I feel like the first year in the new stadium, I feel like Moyes is actually building a bit of stability there. I'd like to see him stay there and kind of see what they can do. I don't feel like he necessarily has to be in a massive rush, but if you're thinking about England prospects for the World Cup next year, it feels maybe like he would have to move to a bigger club to put himself more in the frame. Obviously, he wasn't picked in Thomas Tuchel's first England squad. I do feel like that will probably change regardless of where he goes in the summer.
Can't he play for a different country? Can he play for Ireland? Because I saw talks about him being disappointed on not getting picked, and he's gonna think about his.
I think maybe he can, but there was definitely talk of him being a bit let down by it, and you know he's been. I don't think he has necessarily been quite the level maybe of last year, but he's still been very good, and there's still such a high ceiling there with Branthwaite. I'm thinking maybe Manchester United looking at another left-sided defender when you think about how injury-prone Martinez is. Obviously, he's out for a long time at the moment anyway. I don't know. I feel a bit bad about it, and I always feel bad a little bit about kind of shopping these players away from smaller clubs. Let's say like to go and
they'd get good money for him though, right?
They would. I also thought about. Dean Howson, but then I feel like it's quite obvious that he's probably going to move anyway. Again, with Dean Howson, I kind of feel like there's no rush also. I feel like it's the same with Branthwaite. Like, I feel bad about doing this, but I do feel like if Branthwaite wants to kind of nail down that left centre-back slot at the World Cup next year, which he could do, like, it's probably going to be Gahey, and then I think Conte has done really well in those last couple of games with Tuchel as well, but I think there's still a spot there for Branthwaite. One of the other defenders I had was, and it's going to be hard because he's injured for a long time at the moment, was Radu Dragusin, speaking from Spurs' perspective, because I feel like he, regardless of whether Ange is the manager or not next season, Spurs are still going to probably appoint a progressive, attack-minded coach that wants to play possession football, or if it's Iraola, someone who's a little bit more about getting the ball forward quickly. You still want your defenders to be progressive, striding out from the back, playing balls through the lines, and Dragson's just not a good fit for probably whoever the manager is next season at Spurs. So it feels like for his own career, he needs to make that move back to a league that would probably suit him. But I'm gonna go for Branthwaite, but I feel a bit guilty about it. I feel a bit guilty.
There's good money there for Branthwaite, right? Like
Yeah.
you say about Manchester United, they've been interested in him. Really, if Everton are going to look to sell him, you're probably touching upon 50 million, maybe a little bit less. 40 now.
I think that's what they'll want. But that's the thing.
2 years left in his
What did
deal, I
United
think.
bid last year that kind of Everton laughed it out of the water, didn't they? It was a bit like
must have been
30
around
something.
yeah. I think they wanted like 70, 80.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, the longer you hold on to somebody like this, the more the market deflates.
Yeah.
And so
50 million was rejected.
Wowza. So yeah, but maybe that gets it done this summer because they need to do quite a lot of work. It remains to be seen how much money is going to be put in by the new owners. And
Yeah, true.
I also think it's quite hard to enhance the reputation of a centre-back playing in that Everton system. Like, fundamentally, you are playing in a conservative manner, and it's not really the kind of thing that attracts big clubs. Like, right now, teams are excited about him because his passing numbers in the Netherlands are still fairly recent.
Yeah.
He's still young. He's obviously homegrown. Like, these things are all beneficial. Once he starts ticking up towards, like, 25, then the upside starts to go away, and you think, well, he's been playing in a conservative deep block system for
very
some
good box
years.
defender, but we're not going to see the best of him on the ball like playing at Everton for some
And when
time.
you look at United, for example, you're like, is he going to do the stuff that we need him to do, which is
Free at
cover
the
a lot of ground? Like, that starts to be more of a question mark. Right now, because he's so young, you're like, we can build him into the thing we want him to be. So it would be
Yeah.
a good time for him to move, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know, United's business is going to be really interesting. I also, again, there's a lot of questions over the new Everton ownership, if they're going to spend money in the summer, and if they do, whether they'll put the money in themselves, because
Yeah.
otherwise they do need like a big money sale really to generate
And
something
there's
like
not
that.
a lot of value in the United squad to generate through player sales either. Like, they'll probably get
Yeah.
Rashford off the books and these other players. It's interesting though, because I don't know, when I was thinking about centre backs or defenders just generally, it doesn't feel like there's loads of teams in the Premier League that actually need a big centre back in the summer. It feels like maybe Tottenham might if someone like Romero goes, but
Liverpool
Branthwaite-
if Van Dijk.
Liverpool might need a couple.
Liverpool are probably over maybe Howson, aren't they? But then like Brentford's not going to make that.
No,
It it has been rumoured, isn't it? Look, they might be looking at him, but there's no way that happened.
definitely not.
Newcastle maybe as well. There's not loads of teams that need a top centre half, so it's going to be like
Well, a few have done business over the last few years to try and
Brighton
bring them in, haven't they?
Yeah.
Even Arsenal kind of, if you bring any more defenders in, it feels a bit mad, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think,
Arteta's
I think
wet dream.
Arsenal might send somebody out and bring
Yeah,
somebody in.
that I could see.
Like,
That I could see.
like
Kivior
Kivior
or something.
But I also think that when you're a team like Everton, having a really, really valuable centre back is actually not worth that much to you. Like, because
Yeah.
you play a system where the centre
Yeah,
backs
yeah.
are covered to
Yeah.
some degree, and also I think O'Brien looks really good.
yeah.
They're not worth as much to you as they are for teams where they are expected to bring the ball out of defence, to
Yeah.
pass, all that
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of stuff. Like, so it's worth more to Everton to have a £50 million attacker than a
That's
£50 million
really true.
centre back because of the way they play. I
Yeah.
think.
No,
That's a
you're
really good
you're
point.
right.
So if they could ship him out for that kind of money and bring in a genuinely excellent attacker, that would, I really think, change Everton's prospects.
Well, did they not get in Tarkovsky for like free? Or if
so.
if
Yeah,
not,
they
was,
did.
and like he's gone on to be a fantastic defender for them. Like
Yeah, he's
and-
just
and
like a
he-
good, solid defender.
exactly that. Exactly
Yeah.
that.
It also
Because-
feels like maybe with the new owners as well, their recruitment strategy might change. They've brought in a few younger players over the last few years
true,
and kind of taken
yeah.
a bit more gambles rather than bringing in older, steady heads that are just going to settle things. They might go out and be able to find the next Djellab Branthwaite potentially. Like it does feel like Everton are going to be a little bit more stable going into that new stadium. So it's not a risk for a young player that maybe wants to make that move. They're going to get game time if Branthwaite goes. So I think you're probably right. He's probably easy to replace than if they had, or it doesn't make as much sense to try and hold on to him
yeah.
as if it would
they
be
were
if they maybe had like a, or even like someone like Iliman and Jai if he kind of carries on the trajectory
Sure.
that
Yeah.
he's on into next
Or
year.
if they were like a Brighton type team.
Yeah.
Like, put it this way: if Dragusin were fit, and like Everton went and got like Kivior and Dragusin off
Yeah.
Arsenal and
Not
Spurs
bad.
for like knockdown prices, I'd think, yeah, that's actually fine.
Pretty good deal.
Like,
Yeah, 100%.
I don't think that's gonna like be a huge problem for them. Whereas if Brighton went and did that, I'd say I'm not sure those guys are right for you.
Yeah.
That might be a
they
problem.
need it. Yeah,
Makes
I
sense.
agree.
Okay, good suggestion. I'm going to move on to mine. I will say as well, I basically sent Ben my list first, so I might have taken a few of the kind of number one players beforehand. But it is none other than Mark Gahey. We saw, obviously, him being spoken about in the summer. Newcastle were obviously looking around him, sniffing around him. He's moving into the final year of his contract next season, and he's very much taken, by the looks of it, his career and next destination by the hands. He's not being controlled by where Palace want to send him or whatever it might be. Palace supposedly, Glasner came out, I think this week or a couple of weeks ago, and said Palace have been trying to get Gay to sign a new contract for 2 years now. Before I was here, they were trying to get him to sign a new deal, and he's not. And to be fair to him, like, it's completely up to him, and it's exactly like he wasn't like throwing under the bus. He was actually saying it's absolutely fair enough. We know the talent that he is,
and he's like peak age, homegrown centre back, can play both sides.
Exactly. Another season where he's performed pretty well. You look at Palace's defence again. We're mentioning it off camera, but the last couple of months, Palace are basically fourth in the table for how well they've been playing. He's a player who, whatever team he joins, he adds leadership. I think he speaks really, really well when he has to do press conferences. When he's made the step up to England, been fantastic there. It's interesting where, obviously, sometimes people might criticise him to say, look, he's playing in a side that doesn't have that much possession at times, or doesn't do certain things that, say, Liverpool would want to do, or if he went to Man City, whatever it could be, where he has to play in a high possession side. Went to England, looked absolutely fine.
Yeah,
looked really good.
It's international football, though.
It is international football, but he's playing with, but he's also playing with better players around him. I thought he looked.
But he's not the passing hub of that team.
No.
He's also playing in a back three this season, which is a little bit of a knock.
But you've seen
they should have sold him last summer.
Him.
They should have sold him last summer.
Sure,
they
but
paid hardball, and that made sense. But if they got a 60 mil bid or whatever last summer, they absolutely should have taken it, especially with him now having.
They got a 70 mil bid last summer.
They should have taken. Yeah, but you never quite know. Like, what's add-ons and what's like base fee and all that kind of stuff. But they should have taken that immediately because he is a good centre back, but he's not great in the air. And he is a right-footed pace on the left, and is like, okay. No, he doesn't.
But statistically, he's doing better than Gabriel and Saliba.
Not aerially, he isn't. Like if you just look at aerial win percentage, like maybe, there's like what's called hops. Like there are like advanced metrics on this where he's just like not that strong. And generally we see that of left-sided centre backs because you kind of need to get a left-sided centre back in your team, and as a result, quite often you're willing to accept some weaknesses in their game. The thing is, though, he's not actually left-sided.
No,
he's just like a decent enough passer with his right foot that it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still just look at him and think like, do you bring him in to play on the right, or do you say, right, okay, you're still a left-sided centre-back for us? It just feels to me like some team might go and offer like 50 mil for him this summer. No, some team might go and offer a price for him this summer, like 30 mil. And Palace will say, no, we want 50 mil. And he sees out another year and then he goes to like Newcastle or Spurs or some team like that.
No, I think
would be great. I think that'd be fine.
Agreed. But I think he moves this summer. I think whatever happens, I think there's too many clubs are still interested. Chelsea, obviously, Chelsea interested in everyone. Newcastle are interested. I think if you see what happens,
money to pay what they want for him.
But if
they sell someone, depending where they finish in the league.
I mean, maybe they'll do it, but I think they'd be really dumb to do it. Chelsea are the team who does. Chelsea do dumb stuff that they don't need to do. So Chelsea are the obvious candidates to spend the crazy money. But like, I like Gay.
I think there's quite a few that are going to be in for him.
I wouldn't spend to me, I'd pay like 35 mil for Gay.
I think it wouldn't take much more than that to get him this summer.
Okay.
I think 45 is something we could see.
I think they'll probably push for. I think they might push for at least 50, just because they held off on like 70.
They'll push, but the issue is for Palace this year, they're not getting any money next season.
No, true. Right? But then again, £50 million for a centre back who, in my opinion, I think has probably become the A side of that England centre back partnership. When you think about how, like, don't get me wrong, love John Stones, but he has kind of become a bit unreliable with injuries. When you're looking ahead to the future, I think the leadership skills. He was England's best player at the Euros. Again, I don't think he's amazing on the ball. I think he can sometimes look a bit clunky when he's actually taking it out from the back, but he has got the ability to beat people. He's not a massive line breaker with his passing, but he's still good enough to make that step up to a top team. And I think, like Pat says, he's a little bit weak in the air, but all of these centre-backs kind of have their deficiencies. I still think Palace will probably be within their rights to look at least 50 million and then kind of go.
It'll drop. I think that's the thing. Like, they'll go, we want 50. People go back and go, we're not paying you 50. And maybe it drops to a 40 or whatever it might be. I think if someone got for 35, that's
an amazing deal, I think. Not for Palace, but for someone else.
He had I also think we're underestimating.
Chelsea, though, you are signing him to play on the right side, right?
I think you saw.
He's not going to start over Cole.
You would.
No, is that for Farner as well? Gone.
Yeah, he'd probably. I actually don't think. But I don't think Chelsea will be the ones that get him.
But then you're buying this guy who, like, his chief benefit, which is that he can play on the left, the thing that actually makes him more valuable, is immediately devalued.
Yeah.
But it's not Chelsea. I don't think we
Same
should
goes
get
for
too
Newcastle,
caught up on
they've
the
got a
Chelsea side.
preferred candidate. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, look, if there are lots of candidates in for him, then sure. But like, he didn't go last year at that price. I guess there are lots of other moving parts here. Rumours about Mateta.
Yeah.
Rumours about Eze. Rumours about
Wharton.
Glasner to RB Leipzig.
Yeah.
Like if they make if they sell Wharton for like 70 mil, which is actually totally doable.
Yeah.
Then
Sort
they
of
can just
literally
say
got it,
like, we'll just keep him for another year and we'll figure it out. They shouldn't do that. In my opinion, they should sell all these guys for as much money as they can. I would, I wouldn't want to sell them, but if you can get like getting towards 9 figures for Wharton, you should do it. If you can get 50 mil for Gay, definitely do it, because they went and got Lacroix last summer, who
He's been so good.
and he was just like, and if you're going to play back 3 going forward as
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
like fairly cheap, has been totally fine, like nothing to worry about. You can do that, I think, relatively.
They've just lost Dougie Freeman, haven't they?
Yeah,
Which is
they
an
have.
interesting. don't know who's actually replaced him off the top of my head.
They've also got quite a good academy, Palace. Like
They do,
you never
they
know
do.
what
And
they've
also
got.
with the
They
way,
do.
I know obviously Freeman's gone, but over the past couple of years, you kind of have trusted Palace to bring in these
Done
kind of
well. They've done,
replacements.
even Ismail Assar, who in the summer
he's
we were a
been
bit like,
really good.
has actually ended up being a good signing this year.
Yeah.
They should have some money. They should have some money to spend,
This
because
is
they
the
didn't
thing
spend
where
a great deal.
this is the
last
thing
year.
where I think actually, it's not like they're in a position where they need to sell him, like because they don't have money or anything like that
No.
to spend. I do think they've got enough in the summer
It's
to
more the
to do
timing of
things.
it with his contract situation.
Exactly
Is
that.
Eze in the last year of his contract as well? Because that could be another one that kind of like.
I think he's got a bit more. Surely,
then you're in charge.
Surely.
you
I know
get a
he's
bit
got a
worried.
release clause of like 60 million, but I think the stumbling block for clubs last season with Eze was that I think Palace wanted it paid basically nearly all of it up front. So they're very good at holding on to
2027.
Okay, so he's got a couple of years.
And he's a year older. Like, if people
Yeah.
didn't do it at that price last year, they're unlikely to at that price this year.
Yeah, especially with the
26.
way I'm pretty sure they wanted
27.
like it was like 68 mil, but they wanted like 60 of it up front. It's just
Yeah.
it's not happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think-
and he hasn't had. I don't think he's had the best of seasons this year compared to previous
No,
as well.
no,
Yeah,
no.
but I
it feels
don't-
like he's catching fire
Not
a
to
bit
say,
now, but
not to say like he's been bad or anything.
No, and also, like, I don't think it really affects anybody's opinion of it.
Yeah,
So-
true,
no, definitely
true.
So do I
Palace
need to
are such
pick
a
which one of these
So
needs to move?
from those two centre backs, who do you want to pick? Bring him into the agency. We think you can get a better deal with them. Jad Branthwaite or
I'm more
Mark
excited
Gay?
about Branthwaite going. I'm more interested in seeing what Branthwaite ends up being. Like, Gay, I know the player Gay is.
yeah, you know what you're going to get.
And the age he is. Like, I think
Is Gay a Champions League player?
You know what Gay? I don't know, man. I truly don't know. But I don't think he's going to embarrass you. But I don't think he's going to add very much. And the price you're paying for him is like he needs to be additive. So I would just look at someone like Gay and I think, you know what doesn't happen is like Liverpool signs Gay and he's a superstar. You know, that doesn't happen. Whereas Branthwaite might be. Like, Branthwaite might turn out to be amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't know. Gay's going to be good. Gay's already good, and he will continue to be good, I think. In fact, he might be slightly worse than he is now. I don't see him being that much better.
I feel like he's slightly underrated.
yeah, I also feel like there's a lot
I
of
think
clubs
he's
that will need
considerably
that.
overrated. And I really like the player, but I think he's considerably overrated.
I think there's a lot of clubs as well with Gahey that, or a select handful of clubs that need that kind of stability. Like I'm looking
Sure.
at Tottenham, for example, as if they do lose Romero, I don't think.
I think his
Gahey
leadership
brings you-
adds a lot as well.
I agree,
mate.
and also I think sometimes I know he's had injury problems in the past, but it's just that consistent ability to be available a lot of the time. You know you can rely on him. He's made mistakes, of course. All centre backs make mistakes. Van Dijk last night, it happens. But I do think Gahey, wherever he goes, he will add something and just be, at very worst, kind of a steady Eddie where he's just like, you know, you can rely on him.
Yeah.
I don't think he's amazing on the ball. I don't think any of his skills are necessarily world class, but I think when you put them all together, he's a very well rounded, very, very decent centre back that would improve Newcastle, Tottenham. I mean, Aston Villa don't need one, but Villa, those kind of clubs,
Yeah.
I think to help sort of push them back towards where they want to be.
No one's moaning about the signing. If you
No,
bring
no,
him
I
in
think
kind of thing.
I think everyone would be really happy with it if they got him.
Okay, well, let's move on to midfielder. I don't mind kicking things off first because the guy I'm bringing to you, Pat, he's normally brought up every single summer. It's Frankie de Jong.
It's supposedly in negotiations over a contract extension.
He was
They
good.
are.
He was good last
They
night
are.
as well.
And it's interesting with Frankie because this season has been a lot of bench minutes, to
Yeah.
be fair to him. A lot of bench minutes. Obviously, we've seen this guy have
He was injured a long time at the beginning of the
injury
season.
problems quite often. And because of that, we've seen the rise of a lot of La Masia guys, really. Obviously, Pedri and Gavi are mainstays in that team. Then you've seen Casado, been obviously really good. But now, who when he was playing,
Yeah.
was really good. Obviously,
Yeah.
those two have kind of picked up injuries and stuff recently. And so there's a lot less minutes available since Frankie's been injured, and when he's come back to have, and going forward really in this Barcelona side, and with the way that Hansi Flick wants to play, I do wonder whether it's time for Frankie de Jong to move on. For years, Frankie's like, I don't know, the way Barcelona fans look at him or have felt towards him has been a little bit iffy. Like there was that several year transfer saga about Manchester United and will he, won't he? Obviously, he's on crazy money at Barcelona, and there was that huge thing as well about Barcelona still owing him money too, and supposedly things haven't been paid off. He didn't want to leave until that was paid and such. But again, this summer, Barcelona are going to have transfer issues. There were already talks about that Olmo signing wasn't actually legit or wasn't properly working. He's obviously now injured as well, which isn't great.
Basically all season. He's played like 900 minutes all season.
And so Barcelona are going to go into the summer and have to think about, okay, who do we sell here? How do we raise some funds that isn't just about now like selling the chairs of the new stadium to a third party, whatever it might be. And look, you don't want to have to get to a situation where Barca have to go, look, we need to sell one of our really, really promising youngsters. We don't want to sell Yamal. We don't want to sell Casado. We don't want to sell Cabrasi. Like, we don't want to sell any of these guys. And Frankie de Jong has kind of done his time at Barca now. Yeah. And he's been there for a long time.
Yeah, he's been there longer than you think.
He has. Plus, his contract, as we said, runs out in 2026. So it runs out at the end of next season. He's going into his final year. If Barca are ever going to make any money on him, if he doesn't sign this contract extension, then they need to sell him now. Pat is right. There are talks about an extension, and in this extension, the wage would drop, and supposedly, if he hits certain targets, he'll get more money based on that.
I don't know why they want to extend him. I feel like the entire
they
time
should be just thinking, sell him this summer.
How long's he got left?
2026.
Okay, so the whole time he's been there, they've been bitching about him.
Yeah.
And like, he's now 27, I think. Is he 27 or is he 27?
27.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's still just like at the right age where you can probably get some interesting buyers. Okay, Man City went out and got Nico Gonzalez, which is a little bit of a problem, and it looks like Arsenal might have done the Zubimendi deal, and those are the teams. But I agree.
Yeah.
You're going to say Spurs. I think Spurs. I also think Liverpool.
Yeah.
Because like
I also had a little thing about Bayern as well.
I think we all,
Bayern.
I think
feel like that's been on there.
Okay, so you stole my thunder there because I think.
Sorry.
No, I agree. I think Bayern. You know, it looks like Kimmich is going to re-up, but Goretzka's pretty old. Like,
it's not really worked for Palhinha either.
Who's interesting. Yeah, Palhinha's. I don't know.
Really get that.
Like, they definitely need somebody else there. Now, they might want to go and get somebody younger, but if you had like a long-term kind of Pavlovic, De Jong with Kimmich playing fewer and fewer minutes, now he's in his 30s, that'd be interesting. Because he's one of the few people who gives you some of the passing that Kimmich does.
Yeah.
I think Liverpool would genuinely be really interesting. Spurs is the most fun, right? Spurs objectively the most fun. Whether he quite has the defensive nous to be like a lone six is difficult. You
can play the 8 as well.
I also think we've kind of got that profile.
Still got the problem.
Yeah, you do.
I also think we've kind of got that profile ticked off a little bit with Bergvall. Like, I see Bergvall as like
true
Frankie.
I think he's a bit really
more recently, less so. Recently, he's doing less ball carrying and doing insane defensive numbers.
Yeah,
so that's interesting.
Yeah, Frankie kind of broke my heart because I think it was before actually we even played them in the Champions League the season before. He was very close to joining Tottenham, very very close from Ajax, and it was like, and then obviously he went to Barca. I feel like Bayern ticks a lot of boxes, makes a lot of sense. It's still like, I know he's obviously struggled to really nail down a starting spot at Barca. He's never really quite had the impact that we thought he was going to have. It felt so right at the time when he moved there. But
there are a lot of changes at Barca.
His best football is it's been turbulent. Yeah. Like different managers, but Flick has obviously kind of gone down the La Masia route. Pedri has been insanely good this season as well. He was actually quite good, Frankie, last night against Atletico. But I do feel like with his contract situation as it is, I feel like Bayern. I feel like also with Frankie, like, his best years are still ahead of him. He's only he's 27, just coming into his prime. I feel like he'd go to Bayern, be a regular starter, like you said, kind of help develop Pavlovic, like take some of those minutes off Kimmich. I think that ticks a lot of boxes.
Well, Laporta supposedly said that, like, basically, if he doesn't sign a new deal, he's gone in the summer, which is not like the craziest thing ever. I hope that makes sense. You get money or let him go for free.
They should sell him either way. Like, he doesn't give them enough squad value at the moment for the amount that they pay him. Like, he hasn't played that much this season, and Bernal has sat out pretty much the entire season. It was an ACL, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've got him coming back to bulk out your midfield, and your midfield with Casado, Bernal, Gavi, and Pedri is absolutely insane. Like, it's so stacked. Like,
For the next 10 years plus.
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't cut some wages and bring in a little bit of money. Like, it just seems silly to me.
Well, supposedly back in 2022, £63 million was the fee that was actually agreed between United and Barca for him. Then fell through with him
not getting that.
having that issue. I think you get him for like 35, if not less.
God damn.
Yeah,
If you can get him for 35, I think that's a very interesting.
Maybe it goes for 40 pounds as well.
I think they'll try and play hardball.
And who knows? Maybe a few different clubs get involved as well with the deal.
Is he on quite big money at Barca?
Yeah,
so it's going to be quite hard to get.
Huge wages. That's the thing, is whether it comes down to him wanting to leave. I think ultimately he'll either sign this new contract extension that puts him on lower wages, but if he hits certain targets, he'll get more money.
Yeah.
However, does he play that often, or does he want to take this new challenge and again have a huge cut in wages because no one's paying him like the 250 that I think he's on at Barca? If
This
not
is
more.
why Italy is kind of out, right? Like,
Yeah,
because he
yeah.
just, you know,
He'll want over 100. Easily.
Yeah,
no, he'll want
at
like
the very
200.
least.
He'll want it. He won't get it.
I don't know. I think he will get over 200 probably. Yeah, I don't know.
I think he would if he came to the Prem.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, that's why I think that he'll be quite keen on a move to the Prem, because Liverpool and Spurs and all these clubs, to be honest, are going to free up a lot of wage space. This
Yeah,
summer.
true.
A
Yeah.
ton of them are.
True.
I would say United would be kind of interesting, but I don't think they should do it. He's too old.
It'd be
He's too
so
old.
boring.
He's about to come out of his peak years. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's not going to just like fall off a cliff, I don't think. But like 27, really, midfielders stop being at their peak at 27, 28. You still get value, but you are going to see a gradual decline in his like physical capacity, and his physical capacity is
It was
one of the
already
things
quite low.
His physical
Yeah.
capacity, I don't know. Physical capacity is one of the things that made him special. as
I
a
mean,
player.
fitness-wise, as in
Oh, sure.
injuries. And
but
like,
I mean, like, you know, what you want from him is like his ability to burst through midfield. Right?
Yeah,
If he
yeah,
if
does
he
that
stops
very
being able to do that, then you've got much more of a static passer, and it's a little bit like old man Pogba, where you've got this incredible technical ability and brain, but not really the athletic ability anymore.
I mean, there are certain United fans where if you said Pogba back, they have actually said yes. So that is Frankie de Jong. Benjamin, who
Bleak
is
times.
your midfielder?
I've got another midfielder that kind of gets linked with a move away every transfer window, and I think it's finally time in the summer with the way that this club are kind of building more towards the future with some of the younger players that are getting more responsibility. Got a lot of exciting young players there. This club needs a rebuild, and I think Jack Grealish needs to go somewhere that he's probably going to... Like last night against Leicester, again, Leicester are really poor, but played centrally, scored that goal, was a lot more influential in the game. And I've not necessarily been one of these people that kind of bought into this idea that Pep has ruined Grealish. I think Grealish has been one of the most... Well, not in the last couple of years maybe, but was one of the most important cogs in the treble winning side. He was, in terms of his ball retention, etc. Like, ask any City fan and they'll tell you that they probably didn't play the same way without him in the team. He was so influential for them. But it feels like with the age that he's kind of getting to now, I think he's going to be 30 this year.
Yeah, if not, yeah.
It feels like I want to see him go somewhere. Now he's kind of maybe past his best, where he is actually going to really enjoy his football and play more centrally, have more influence on the game. And like I said, I think he's been way more important for City than people realise. I feel like with the way that City are kind of... They're definitely going to kind of get rid of some of that older guard, and it feels like he's going to be a part of that. I feel like somewhere like West Ham, if they lose someone like Paqueta, who we don't know what's going to go on with the charges and all that kind of stuff, they're going to lose one of their key players who plays in that middle space. They might lose another wide player, and Grealish can kind of cover for minutes out there if someone like a Kudus does go as well on that left-hand side. I think that's a nice kind of fresh start where there's not like his best years behind him. He's won all the trophies that he's going to win. He's won so much, been so good. And now he can kind of go somewhere and just enjoy his football. I'd imagine Potter will give him a role that he can kind of create a lot.
Yeah.
I quite like that idea. I mean, Grealish, he always gets linked with... He always
Villa,
gets linked with
yeah.
Villa, back to Villa. He always gets linked with Spurs. I feel like that kind of ship has probably sailed now, even though it would be quite fun. But I think Grealish, to go somewhere, get more minutes, enjoy the football, free yourself up a little bit, fresh start, and go again. And I feel like with the stage that he's at in his career, like I think maybe like West Ham or even abroad for Grealish, like would be quite interesting. But
Fans, I feel like West Ham fans would love him.
Oh god, yeah,
Absolutely adore him.
I feel like they need that. I know they've obviously got Jared Bowen.
They do have money.
I feel like obviously they've got Bowen, who they put up on a pedestal, who's fantastic, and he's kind of their guy. But I feel like West Ham fans really appreciate the kind of the footballer that Grealish would be. It just feels like a nice kind of fit. So again, it's a bit more of like a, because I'm sure Pep would probably quite like to keep hold of Grealish, but it just feels like with the way that City want to go, Oscar Bob coming back into the fold next year. Savinho, Doku kind of growing again in those wide
They
spaces.
might buy as well in the summer.
I think they need.
They will buy.
Yeah. And
I actually could see what the issue is. The fee, I guess. Like
and the wages.
yeah.
Wages are
West
huge
Ham
issue.
could probably go to 150, but I don't think they can go above that, and even that would be a stretch. And he's going to want a 3 or 4 year deal, at least a 3.
2027 his contract runs
And
out.
what's he on now? He's on like, isn't he on like 280 or something?
Yeah,
So-
that's on big
ridiculous, yeah.
money.
Yeah, he's on huge money.
Look, I'd like to see Grealish go and play somewhere where he's going to be kind of let off the hook. What would be really interesting, what I would really love to see if it were possible, is like Grealish to Italy.
Yeah.
Because I do think he'd be really fun for a team like Inter, or look, he's a different sort of player, but
Conte's Napoli.
they need somebody.
I feel like Inzaghi would love Grealish.
Or going to Atalanta, like Atalanta might sell Lookman. Like he's a different sort of player, but he gives you a lot of the wide playmaking and goal threat. Like that would be super fun.
I'd be so
I just don't think these
so
teams can
surprised.
afford him.
I'd also be so surprised if he left England
Sure.
as well.
Spain, maybe.
I'd be through FC.
Yeah.
Napoli could make sense though, just because you've got like Conte and McTominay. Like,
Yeah.
you do. I
There are
think
a
he would
little.
probably need something like that when
Milan.
people are going to speak English.
Go
so
and
that he
join
could
Kane
fit
and
in.
Dyer at Bayern. I always thought Grealish to Bayern for a while, but I just think with like if
Too
they're-
old for Bayern, I think.
it's
And
too old
Musiala
now.
just does that role better.
Musiala, and also like even in the wide spaces, they're probably going to buy
Yeah, they're gonna
Gittins
get-
in the summer.
yeah.
Like he's not the sort of winger they need. But I always just thought that might, if he does go abroad, I always thought about Bayern as like a fit.
They want Viets as well. Look, I think he's too old for a lot of these teams. Like that is a problem as well.
That's why I feel like West Ham is quite a good sweet spot. It's just like the finances of it might be quite difficult. But from just a purely point of view where we're going to see Grealish get let off the leash a little bit more in the final few
should
years
leave.
of his kind of the best bits of his career, I'd really like to see that.
Okay.
It's a tough one.
So you've got either Frankie de Jong or Jack Grealish.
Both these guys quite boring in their current
Yes,
places.
yeah,
it feels
yeah,
like
yeah.
we have this conversation every summer about when is one of these guys going to go.
Yeah.
I guess De Jong. I think De Jong's got more to give.
I think so.
At this stage of his career, because he's still he's like late middle age in football terms, whereas Grealish is like post peak. But I don't know. I'd like to see both these guys at new clubs playing every minute next season.
Okay.
Won't happen, but I should tell.
Okie dokie. Do you want to go with your forward line first,
Yeah.
my friend?
Yep. I feel like this one, it's kind of just best for all parties if he moves on at this point. This player is clearly good enough to make the jump. It feels inevitable that it's going to happen. I actually think the way that he's acted as well has kind of changed the opinion of a lot of the fans of the club that he's at to kind of actually, you know what, I think it's best that we just kind of move on from you. I think it's Mateus Cunha. Like, I feel like he's definitely going to leave in the summer anyway. He signed that new contract in Jan or early Feb to get that release clause in there.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't really like this idea that Wolves fans should have to kind of feel indebted to Cunha for what he's done for them, given how he's acted and constantly kind of put himself out in the media saying that he wants a new challenge. We know that he's good enough to make that step up. Just save that for the summer. Like, he had 2 years left on his contract anyway. His contract was up in 2027, I believe, at Wolves. Someone would have come in for him in the summer and probably paid more money than what the release clause is now. Wolves are never one to necessarily hold on to force their players to stay. I just don't really like the way that he's acted. And I actually think that Wolves fans have kind of not turned on him, but they've kind of seen the way he's acted and gone, you know what, we're more than happy to take the money for you. Like, yes, you've put us on your back and kind of kept us up this season. Obviously, he's been fantastic and he's proved why he can kind of make that step up. But I also feel like it's best for all parties if he does go. In terms of where I see him, it's a difficult one because I think with Cunha at Wolves, he's so clearly the main man who gets a lot of freedom in that system to kind of pick the ball up wherever he wants, mainly on that kind of left-hand side and drive with it. He kind of gets given the keys. If he makes that step up to Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, somewhere else, Villa, potentially, who knows, probably not, he's not going to get that same license, I don't think. I think he's going to become another cog in what the manager wants to do. I really feel like he fits Liverpool in terms of the way that Slot wants to play with this kind of 4-2-4. Maybe if they play without a striker, I know he can play through the middle kind of players, almost like two number 10s a little bit. Think of the role that Szoboszlai has kind of played where he's almost the furthest man forward at times when Liverpool have kind of either played without Nunes or Jota. I feel like Cunha fits that really well. He can score goals from anywhere. Brilliant ball carrier, does work hard. I also feel like his attitude might have put some teams off as well from kind of spending that big money on him. But
Well, also some of his actions on the pitch this season.
well, this is the
Right,
thing about
as
this
well.
is what frustrates me about Cunha and players like this coming out and saying they want to win trophies. Where was that energy when you were playing in the round of 16 in the FA Cup against Bournemouth, when you were going to penalties and you stupidly got yourself sent off with an act of petulance, couldn't take a penalty in the shootout, then you lose? I'm not saying Wolves were going to win the FA Cup, but you can't have it both ways of saying I'm good enough to make that next step, but then, you know, don't be wrong, he's not let Wolves down. Like, he's up at Wolves obviously this season because they wouldn't be where...
But he's had some moments.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, going into the weekend, they've got Ipswich. They're 9 points above safety at the moment. But if Ipswich beat them, you never know. Wolves aren't 100% safe yet, although I think they'll stay up. I just don't really like the way that he has acted, and maybe that'll put some big clubs off. But I do feel like he's kind of secured himself a move with that release clause. And it does annoy me when people say, like, oh, he's done it to get Wolves some money. He's done it to secure himself. That's exactly what he's done. He's not... Wolves fans shouldn't have to feel indebted to him. But I do think he definitely move, and I feel like he needs it. I feel like Wolves need it. Get that money, reinvest. I think they've got a good manager actually in Vitor Pereira, who's done really well this season for the most part. They've kind of won games without him as well recently, and they can kind of reinvest that into the squad. Some much needed reinvestment in kind of key areas. So I feel like it makes sense for all parties. In terms of where I see him, I do think, like I said, I think systematically Liverpool is a good fit, but I do worry about Cunha in terms of now he's the big fish in the small pond now.
What happens?
How does that translate to a bigger club where he's not going to get as much license and freedom, maybe to just let's get the ball to Cunha and then go? Like,
I almost feel like I can see exactly where he goes.
Manchester United.
Nope, Nottingham Forest.
do you know what? I think
Obviously they bid for him in January as well. They're going to get Champions League football, and they're going to try and they're going to bring in some players in the summer. And I wonder whether they try and get someone like Cunha, a different option to play up top.
It's a statement, isn't it?
It's a huge statement. Obviously, they'll sign another if they haven't already, I can't remember, but they'll sign a deal with Woods to keep him, I guess. Cunha gives you another kind of option to play there. Yep. He can also obviously play a little bit deeper. He can play maybe in rotation with White, Gibbs White if needed, but can play that striker mould, and can drop deep and let the wings go forward. I can see him going to Forest. I really can. Yeah. Do we know what the price is for his release clause now?
I think it's like 62 million. Not sure exactly, but it's around that ballpark.
62 million.
It's a little bit more.
This is a lot of money,
especially when you feel like somebody. Okay, this guy's got more injury problems, but somebody like Victor Boniface was supposedly available for like 50 mil in January.
Like Osman, so you get Osman for 60 too.
Yeah.
Well, less than that. His price ended up less than that. I mean, like someone like Boniface though. The reason I'm using him is because I think he's somewhat similar to Cunha in that he can play up front, but he's actually more of a ball carrier. He likes to cut in from the left hand side. He works hard. If he was available for like 50 million euros in January to a Saudi team, then he's probably available for slightly less than that in the summer. Yeah. And I think, and he's younger and has a higher ceiling, even if he has like bigger injury problems.
Yeah.
To me, I think that Cunha as one of those, as being able to play centre forward or as one of the roles behind the centre forward at Manchester United, I do think that would make a lot of sense. At the same time, I would probably target players who are a little bit younger if I were United. You know, if he was 23, then I'd do it. But that to me is like the perfect role for him. But United also you can imagine him in quite a lot. Like if Spurs got him and they were like, he's going to be our like son successor and kind of play on the left, but like tucked in, you'd think, okay, like, I can see it. Like there are lots of different looks you get with Cunha. To me, I think United is the best system for him, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I think it's the right move.
I also think it's classic United of like someone who's quite volatile as well. Like I just don't think you could see that kind of blowing up a little bit if he goes to United. I think this is where Cunha, I think he screwed himself over a little bit with the game that he's kind of played over the last few months. I think he kind of gaslit Wolves fans into thinking, no, I'm going to when he was doing all the contract stuff, and I don't like the way he's kind of behaved. And I also think that the actions in terms of letting himself and his teammates down on the pitch have maybe put people off, but also getting that release clause into that contract and then behaving like that afterwards and kind of inflating the value maybe. If he'd carried on towards the end of the season, playing really well, putting that Wolves team on his back, no one would have batted an eyelid at paying 62 million, I don't think. If that was just, forget the release clause, if someone came in and bid that, or Wolves drove them up to that price, I think there's a lot of teams that would have gone, you know what, yeah, actually, we think he's worth that. He's still, what is he, 20?
I think he's 26.
There's a lot of upside still there in terms of the way that kind of modern football and these kind of number 10s are playing now. You think, I always thought as well, like it's not going to happen probably because of the rivalry, and also that I think there's a lot of things that have to make it happen for this to potentially happen. Like if Villa, for example, didn't get Champions League football and maybe had to make a sale, someone comes in for Morgan Rogers, Cunha would be such a brilliant fit, I think, for that as well. I can't see that happening, but there will be a lot of clubs that Maybe
He'll have people sniffing around, but I just think 62 million is too much.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I think someone would have paid that regardless of the release clause if he'd have carried on
the same
what he was doing. But
Maybe.
he's kind of let himself down a bit, I think.
I just think... I think what will happen is you can
Yeah,
have a 62 million release
for like
clause all you
40
want.
mil is really what
Yeah,
I'd want.
yeah.
I don't think you get that, but you're like maybe you meet between 40 and 50.
Yeah.
If they insist on 60, then
It
he
is
won't go.
So that'll be one of the most expensive transfers of the summer. Like, and I don't know if you should spend that amount of money on Cunha. Who
And then you're looking at someone who's probably going for kind of like Šeško money. He's going for probably more than Osimhen eventually
Ekitike
goes.
as well.
Like, that's a lot.
it's like not too far from Gyökeres.
It'll be.
Really,
I think it'll be
like-
more than Gyökeres.
Yeah,
I don't
interesting.
think Gyökeres
Gyökeres will
will
be about
go.
50, I think.
He'll go for less than £60 million.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Well, that is one of the forward signings. My forward signing, though, is a player from Brighton. Now, we mentioned...
Could be anyone.
Exactly.
There's literally 10 of them.
Now, we mentioned before on this podcast about the idea of what do Brighton want to do. Right?
Sure.
Do Brighton just want to keep being this club that bring in someone for a year
But
and
they're
then
gonna
eventually
try
sell
and
them on?
the fucking Champions
Or
League.
do they want to win the Champions League?
I think they
Yeah?
do actually.
Do they want to go on to more?
They're going for the top 4 next season,
Yeah.
100%. Like it does now look very clearly.
They could still
like
get top
they're
4 this season.
Committing to it.
I agree.
They're going.
But they're going
Especially
to...
with City.
they're gonna-
And I think Chelsea are quite vulnerable.
They're going to have to probably sell a player this summer in order to help them as well. Because they do spend a lot of money. We saw obviously they spent loads of money in the summer just gone. And they've got a lot of attackers.
Yeah.
They can afford to sell an attacker.
They can't sell Welbeck. He's the one unsellable.
They're not selling well, but don't worry.
I'm serious. Like,
No, I agree.
Have you noticed how much better Brighton look when Welbeck?
Completely
He's the
agree.
glue.
Completely
He's the
agree.
glue. Good, man.
Completely agree.
How dare he be this good at that age?
And do you know who they don't want to sell?
He's
Especially,
almost my age.
especially if they want to. Especially if they want to be better next season. They don't want to sell Baleba this summer.
No.
Right? Try and keep him for one more year. They don't have necessary midfield. They don't necessarily have loads of midfield depth. Yeah, okay.
Oh, if they get that
maybe,
money,
yeah.
there's no
But I
way
don't know
they're
if anyone's
turning
going to be spending 100 million on him this summer. Because
I
I
had to spend
think...
100 mil on a midfielder. I'd be between him and Wharton.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sure. But I think that more teams have issues with going forward or the attack this summer than midfield. Even Liverpool, who I'm sure would love to bring in a DM or some sort of midfielder, or we've already mentioned Frankie de Jong, they'll be thinking, well, 1 right back, 2 centre back, 3
Left back.
You have to go
left back,
yeah.
4 striker,
You have to go a lot
like
down the list.
forward.
Yeah, also
before they
Liverpool
get to
with-
midfield this
Liverpool
summer.
with the DM, I think it's also a case of just like, it'd be amazing if they could bring in someone who's at the level of Gravenberch.
Exactly.
But it's going to be more of a understudy.
Exactly.
Cheaper option that they can just take minutes off Gravenberch.
Precisely. And so maybe we do see some mad bid come in for Baleba and they have to do it, and then maybe this doesn't happen. But otherwise, I think they sell João Pedro.
Yeah.
He feels like his stock's the highest.
Exactly.
I think
he's in that same mould as Cunha, to be fair. Like, he's not really a out-and-out
I'd
striker,
rather have
is he?
him than Cunha. Like, but he can play centre forward, he can
left
play in
wing.
the hole, and he can play left wing.
Yeah.
But I think if they had to sell anyone, they'd probably rather sell Mitoma, right? Just because he's.
Yeah,
I
but
don't
I don't
turned
know.
down that
I
money in
don't know
January,
if
didn't
anyone's
they?
going to be.
I don't think they did, man.
The Saudi
it was a
ones.
bit.
I don't think they turned down 60, 70 for him in Jan. I think actually didn't it end up being like the rumours were like even higher than that? I don't.
It was like 80.
Yeah, I think that either that bid
That
didn't
would
happen
be
or
mental.
Mitoma said I don't want to go, and the club was like, we'll say we turned it down so that
Yeah,
our
yeah.
fans aren't like. It just doesn't. It doesn't make sense to me that you would turn down that money for a 27-year-old in a season where there's not that much on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Then
like,
again, they're still in with a hunt of Champions League football.
They
so-
are more now though than they were.
They
in
were at
January.
the time.
Yeah,
It didn't
yeah.
look. Yeah.
But look,
Yeah,
if Pedro does leave in the summer, that leaves, right? And this is them without them adding any more in the summer coming, which I do see happening. Mitoma, Ndingra, Minter, Gruder, Ruta, Welbeck, Ferguson, and Ciso, Timas, who's joining obviously in the summer, Sarmiento, and Buonanotte. That's 11 attacking forward players to add to that lineup.
They've got like
And that's
4 or
not
5 players there who
Yeah.
can play striker alone.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like because Simas looks sick.
I'm pretty sure they've got a kid on loan as well at Feyenoord too this season. Was it PSV? Anyway, there's another one.
yeah.
There's another one maybe if you even add him into them. That's 12 players, right? And that's not including
I
João
always
Pedro.
forget Adingra exists. And the thing is, every time Adingra plays, I'm like, this guy's pretty good.
Yeah,
Like,
he is
it's
really
like-
good.
it's like
Off
pretty
the left wing
tasty.
as well,
Yeah.
like can play on
Mint
the
has got a
right.
lot. I think Mint has really grown into himself as well the last kind of
Yeah,
few
he's
months.
had a
He's been
good
really.
year. He's
really
Buonanotte
decent.
will have huge benefit from having played like a full
100%.
season.
Yeah, I
basically.
love Buonanotte.
100%.
Also,
Timas,
like-
obviously, Timas been. Is it Timas? Pronounced Timas?
Simas.
Timas. He's obviously
Simas.
been unreal. Had a great season this year. Signed that deal in January to come to them in the summer.
Yep.
He's that striker mould. Like I reckon they probably move on from Evan Ferguson this summer
they'll
as
try and sell
well.
Ferguson.
Like they'll get rid of him, but that still leaves them with like in CISO. They made sure there was no option to buy for Ipswich.
Yeah, they clearly
because they
want
want to bring him back. Maybe there's a move elsewhere.
Did you also
who
say
knows?
what's his name? Like I know he's more of a midfielder, but like Gomez, right? Who they brought in?
I didn't count Gomez.
Venue.
No,
But
I
he's
guess he's
like-
like an attacking mid, but can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like they always have this. They've also just signed. They've just agreed to sign the Sunderland kid too, right?
Oh,
Yes, they did.
One of Sunderland's army of toddlers, like
not Chris
who's like
Rigg, it's-
said-
comes in the summer. Yeah, comes in the summer. Yeah.
They're doing this stuff all the time, and like. Yeah, you're right. They could sell Pedro. Pedro is one of my favourites of their attackers.
He's
but
great.
it does feel like they could sell him and
Be okay.
not suffer that
Tommy
much.
Watson, that's the song.
Tommy
Tommy
Watson.
Watson, yeah. And they wouldn't suffer that much.
Sounds like he's in like
They-
Pinky Blinders.
They wouldn't suffer that much. I completely agree.
Yeah, they'd be all right.
He's like, and like he's had periods of the season where he's been shit hot for a good month or so.
Yeah.
Then cooled
Yeah,
down,
in
not
the
pitched him
autumn.
with any goals or so, and then you see him have a good like 3 games. Had a really good game against Arsenal when he came back from injury.
Both his
Like,
games
I
against
remember they
Arsenal
played
was good
Bournemouth
this
away
season.
and beat them earlier in the season, and he was like the combination play between like him, Ruta, Matoma. It was just like on another level.
There was a
has some
United
really
game as well
interest-
where I think he
Yes.
came on and I think against City too. The Spurs game, I think he was pretty good, but it was the City game or maybe the United game where he came on and got an assist and got a goal, turned the game around, and they won.
I think it was City because I remember Belieber was outstanding in that game as well. and
He came
Pedro-
back from injury against City as well. Actually,
Yeah,
he
he
came
did.
off the bench.
He
Yeah,
did.
He's also putting up bananas defensive numbers this season.
worked
as well.
super
Like,
hard for the
He
team.
is working so hard. Like he's much more of that mold of like you could imagine you could put him in a side and play him. Like more like the modern attacking midfielder. Like like the way Arsenal use Odegaard,
Yeah.
where he's like dropping deep and just like running forward, and he's asked to do the creativity, drop deep, pick up the ball, support the press, like do everything. Pedro actually does do that.
Yeah.
Like he's a real leader, I think,
And
for
he's-
that side.
I
I think
think
it's
so.
underrated.
And he's got so many good assets to his game. Like as you mentioned, creatively he's pretty strong. Can dribble with the ball really well. Can strike the ball
He's
really
finishing
well.
from in and around, like just outside the box. It's just like
The only
Is
issue
he 24?
he's 24. I'm pretty sure.
that's
I think
so
he's
much
just,
upside. Like,
just like like just at the
23.
point. Okay,
24
Oh,
though
okay,
in
right.
September.
So 23 is the age where you you're entering your peak years as a forward. Like normally as a forward, 23 to 27, like these are your peak years. And he's actually got a lot of minutes at young age, so that probably is about right for him. He has got 2 or 3 years where he could get better and better and better. Like really does. And he's already good enough to contribute to an Arsenal, a City.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
City bought him, that would make a lot of sense. Certainly Liverpool, like loads of the Spurs, like every one of the big teams could do with a player like Pedro.
When he played in the Championship for Watford, and
dribble
did he
on.
have a year in the Premier League with Watford? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I
Anyway,
think
so, yeah.
Yeah,
Watford fans said this guy's going to play in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And he had
They were
big
like, this
dribble
guy's
numbers
gonna-
then as well,
yeah.
which he does less now. But you look at him and you're like, okay, 2 years ago this guy was putting
The-
up dribble
the
numbers.
only
Probably
issue-
can still do that.
The only issue I put Liverpool as well as maybe the target, but I don't know exactly where. And I say this with Liverpool, the idea that like, okay, they're after a left winger. We don't know what kind of forward slot wants exactly just yet.
Yeah.
But I don't know what his home would be, and I don't even know if his home's in the Premier
agree.
League. That's it.
could
Liverpool
be.
kind of want to move on from Diaz by the looks of it.
yeah, I
they
was
do.
going to say, like, I feel like he could. I think he ticks so many different boxes for Liverpool, but yeah, about nailing down an exact position. But then again, the beauty of a player like that is that you bring him in for that versatility of just
Yeah.
like, because I think centrally he's got the ability to drive past, pick the ball up on the half turn, even on the halfway line, and drive past players. He's tricky enough to play out wide. His finishing from out there is really good. He's definitely ready to make that step up. I've always seen Liverpool as a
destination.
as an option. They're probably gonna be replacing maybe Jota, Nunez, and Diaz in the summer.
And
It
if
feels like they need
Salah
a couple
signs,
of
and that's if Salah signs a new deal as well.
Exactly, which I think he probably will. But like, I think with
Is there
Jota,
replace Jota?
maybe not.
I just don't think
as
they
a
can do all that work. It's too
as a
much
starter,
work,
I
man.
do think Jota.
Oh, as a starter.
I think
Yeah,
Jota
they
will
want a starting player ahead of
definitely
him.
handy to keep
Okay,
Jota
yeah.
around in terms of like being a squad player. I saw that
Yeah,
last
they're
night.
definitely getting rid of Nunez.
Yeah,
without
and
a
Diaz,
doubt.
I think
Yeah.
they might take the money. Like I don't know who will come in for him, but obviously there was rumours of City last year. Newcastle, man, I don't mind that. As a shout.
Newcastle, sell Isak, Nunez in.
Well, I've actually as my
Chaos.
mystery player, I've actually got a player for Newcastle.
Interesting.
Okay.
I
But
love
yeah, I also reckon about 7. I reckon you can get him for under 70 as well as João Pedro.
Yeah.
He has got a long contract. Like,
That's
Brian
right.
know what they're doing.
That's all right. If you got,
But I reckon you can get like a 60 bid in there, and maybe something happens.
it's top end, but I would much rather spend 60 on him than Cunha.
Yeah,
Even
I
the
agree.
age alone.
Yeah, I'd agree. with
Agreed.
that. What about if I don't think it will happen this summer now, but I feel like the moment was January. What if Aston Villa sell Ollie Watkins and bring in João Pedro?
different kind of player.
I think if
someone who can. I know he's not the same kind of
it
striker,
would
but
be
like
great.
they would.
But it's like they did already bring in Marlon. They might make
Yeah, that's
Rashford
true.
permanent.
Yeah.
I suspect they will make Asensio
Yeah.
permanent.
Yeah.
Like it does feel like they've got lots of like. They don't really have many out and out wingers. What they have is a load of guys who like technically play on the wing, but
Yeah.
are more like forwards, right?
Yeah.
Like Marlon. It feels like Pedro is another one of those. Like certainly if they were to sell Rodgers and bring in Pedro, then I'd be
makes
like,
sense.
great, definitely do that because I like Rodgers, but I prefer Pedro. But
surely if you were to,
I
and
think they'll
also
just get a forward,
yeah,
right?
probably.
If Watkins
and also if you were to sell Watkins, surely you would have sold him in the January with more
I don't
money.
think, I
and
don't
kept
actually see it
Duran.
happening in the summer.
But it's an interesting one. Though. It is an interesting one.
I think they should have maybe sold him in January.
Yeah.
I assume then, from what you've said, you're going with Mr. Joao Pedro.
I kind of expect both these players to move,
Yeah.
or at least for there to be significant movement around them. Like Pedro is the one who I'm excited about. The thing about Pedro right now is he does loads and loads of cool stuff. It'd be interesting to see whichever team he chooses to go to. That will define the player that he ends up being.
Okay.
Is he going to be a left winger? Is he going to be a kind of like inside forward? Is he going to be a centre forward? Is he going to be a 10? Like, I really don't know. So I'm excited to see what that might be. But there are lots of teams. There are loads of players I see linked to clubs where I think, for this price, for this player, like, why aren't you looking at someone like Joao Pedro?
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens. Brighton fans, let us know, and fans of any club, let us know what you think of all of the
I'd love
players
to,
we're
for
speaking
all
about
these
today.
guys to say at Brighton and Brighton to like make come like third.
Well,
next
I-
This is what I was saying about
Essentially-
Brentford at the start. I was just like, I don't want to feel bad.
Bad saying
Yeah,
it.
like,
And I do agree, to be fair, but I feel like Brighton,
part of their model.
they
isn't it?
will sell someone.
Yeah.
And you'd probably rather do that where it probably affects you less.
Well, and they're smart about doing it. Like if they sell someone, they'll be like, here are the players that we want to get.
Yeah.
If we sell this guy for 90 mil, then we
Yeah.
can pick up these three
Yeah.
guys. Whereas other teams, I feel like they kind of like, we don't want to sell him, we don't want to sell him, we don't want to sell him, and they eventually end up selling them
End
for
of the
less than they
window.
thought they'd get,
Yeah.
and they don't have a plan for what they'll do. Brighton understand that actually, like, ambition is not just about keeping your players; it's about planning the next iteration of your side.
Yeah.
So
They're always thinking about the next thing.
what I'm excited about, if they sell Baleba or if they sell Pedro, is
Who's
who
the
they
next
buy.
one?
Who
Yeah.
they buy. Like, because Ayari as well, like having looks pretty sick. Are those all our players? Do we have
No,
more?
so,
have
we,
a
so we've
wild
got
card?
we've now got our wild cards, our surprise
okay,
players
okay,
as
okay.
well.
These better be wild.
I don't mind. Well,
These better be wild.
I'm
Zach's
going.
gonna
I've
be
got
like,
one that's
oh,
a bit and then one that's like a bit.
It's a Chelsea player. It's a guy who I think could go to Chelsea.
I'm Man United. It's Liam Djellab. It's Liam Djellab. He's going to leave. He's going to leave, isn't he? £40 million release clause if Ipswich get relegated.
Chelsea
Looks like they're going to get relegated.
He's
Man
fit-
United are also apparently really shipping around it.
Yeah, they've
City
had
do
talks, haven't
also
they?
have that buyback option.
What is the buyback? What is it set up?
I thought it was like 20 mil.
I don't think it's
Something
loads.
like that.
I mean, if
but
it's
he
that, they
has to
should
say.
definitely.
He has to say yes.
Yeah, but
Obviously.
they definitely should do that. City need another forward. If you can get that person in for 20, like, definitely do that. That's
Let me
fine.
double check
Even if
that
you sell him in a
before
year,
committing to that.
even if you sell him in a year for like 35, 40, like that's worth it.
Is it? It might, or is it a matching clause?
First option.
It might be like first refusal type thing.
That's less exciting.
I think it might be a matching clause.
Because City do need another forward.
Yeah.
Haaland now out for the next 5 to
whatever,
7
around that.
weeks. Marmouche is not intended to just play centre forward for them, clearly.
No, I think he's going to be more.
But
like
do you think for
Alvarez.
Djellab's career that's good? Because in a fully fit 11, he's never going to start.
But is it good for his career to go to Man United? It's kind of been a bit of a
But
great.
at least he'll play every
Oh,
game.
he'll 100%
and
play.
he'll be better than. Like, I agree. Maybe not Man United, but the point being for him, he's going to have a host of clubs.
His whole
He's
thing
gonna have a
should be,
host of
where am I
clubs.
going to play all the time?
Yeah.
Exactly. 40 million.
He'd also be an interesting player for Newcastle to look at if they did decide to move on
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Very true.
Isak. Or actually, they just need another forward. Like,
Yeah, they can't keep. Right, where's Callum Wilson?
and if he's if Isak gets injured, then you're like Newcastle are just like in the tank.
And also, Isak has got. I wouldn't say he's injury prone, but he has.
Does pick
got-
up injuries.
He
He
does
does,
pick
yeah.
up, yeah.
Definitely. I mean,
They should. I think they should sell Bruno and then just really bulk out the squad.
But there's a few of them. Like Villa might be looking around. Forest might be looking around. I think the interesting thing with
the lap at Forest, I feel like would be.
Forest is quite.
That's a
Yeah.
really good shout,
Yeah.
actually.
But the interesting thing for this, thank you, this summer is obviously it's the market of strikers. Everyone's after a striker.
Yeah.
Every club's after a striker.
It's probably the hottest striker market I think we've had.
Oh, in years.
Like Ekatike,
yeah,
Isak.
in years. But the thing is,
Sesko.
basically, I feel like Djellab is
Is he
going
a
to go
real
to.
centre forward in your opinion?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Djellab.
Maybe not in the traditional sense of what a forward is nowadays, where they're involved in a little bit more.
a bit of a-
But I also
bit of a
think it's tough
throwback.
to say because he's not been able to do. Quite
This
as
is not
much
an
at
issue.
Ipswich.
This is not an issue about his quality. It's a question about like what you really want him.
I
to
actually
be.
think he's an
Like,
old school
you
forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, do you think he's more of a winger?
No. I don't really think of him as a
Like a
winger.
second striker.
But for example, if City hadn't gone and got Marmoush, and they were like, we want someone who can potentially play in place of Haaland when he's injured or with Haaland, I think he's quite interesting. Like if you wanted to use him like Julian Alvarez, I kind of like that for Djellab because he's quite mobile and smart. Like he's a good off-ball runner.
Runs the channels really, really
Yeah.
well.
I
I
think
don't
he's
know.
more of a.
I think he's more of a traditional
out forward,
number nine.
Okay,
personally.
sure.
Yeah.
But the thing that's happening, right? We've got obviously
Wanna see more shots from
Gyökeres
him.
and Osman are two of the big ones. Sesko, possibly, if he does go, I kind of feel like maybe they might end up keeping him, depending if Arsenal don't go for him.
Well, this is the thing that with
Is
the
he
striker
so
market,
expensive.
yeah, the striker market, there's going to be like a massive domino effect of all the deals.
exactly,
And how it kind
exactly
of just, like all this, you got like 3 clubs in for like 6 strikers.
Yes.
If one of these guys goes early,
Yeah.
then it will radically change. You know, like if Chelsea go out and like pick up Osimhen like day one, then or if Arsenal went and got like Gyökeres, then
Yeah.
it would be like, okay, well, does Šeško move now? Like it'd be really
Exactly.
fascinating. But
Massive
then
domino effect.
people like Nunez and Isak could be on the market.
Yep.
We don't really know.
Ekatike, we mentioned there.
Yeah.
Jonathan David is still one as well. Who's
Every
going to be really
season, yeah,
That'd be a
interesting.
quiet pick.
I think he's out of contract, isn't he? So he'll go on a free.
Yeah, he is.
And he's been in with Barca, but he's been in with Newcastle, which I quite
Gets linked with
like.
Tottenham and West Ham every.
But the point being, more so, I think, with the Djellab is to his destination where he'll go is basically deciding where the others go first. I don't think he's the number one pick for a few of these clubs.
Oh, it depends on the price. Like, I mean, the
It's
thing
40
is,
mil. It's 40 mil is the release clause.
but that's the thing.
Doesn't mean they have to
But
do
that's
it,
the thing,
obviously,
isn't it?
yeah.
If I go and I talk to Sporting for Gyökeres, and they're like, right, he's going for like 42 or something this summer, which is maybe more correct. Like, then I'd be okay with that. But if you go there and they're like, he's 60, and Napoli are like,
We still want 60 for
we're
Osimhen.
still asking 60 for Osimhen,
Yeah.
and Šeško is I think like 66
Yeah,
or something
yeah,
like that with a
yeah.
buyout. Then I'm like, Djellab at 40 starts to look really, really
Hasty.
good to
Yeah.
me. You know, so I think it depends how, because they're weirdly suddenly a bunch of strikers have appeared on the market. All these teams can't be quite as hard-assed as they
Yeah,
would
yeah.
like to be in an ideal
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. But
Nunez as well. Like if Nunez is available at like 50,
I feel like Nunez will
very
leave the Prem though, won't
extremely
he?
Yeah.
interested.
It's got like AC Milan written all over it.
Italy.
They already
Probably
bought
won't.
centre forward.
Yeah,
Like,
true.
Maybe he goes to back to Spain. But yeah, so Liam Djellab is my suggestion for the surprise one. I think he'll be moving whatever happens. It's just more the interesting fact of where he'll go to. And ultimately for himself, it needs to be someone where he's going to play the majority of minutes as a striker.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. His goal last night was so like one of my favourite things is where strikers just hit the ball unnecessarily hard.
I just
Into the back, like it was such a brutal finish from like so close in. It was like, and also he did some brilliant channel work in the lead up to that. His goals this season, like
He's got everything to his game. He could be a poacher, like
Yeah.
he did, obviously.
he scored a goal against Aston
carries
Villa
the ball
away.
well.
Where there was a finish where he got across the near post and just it's a really deft
Yeah.
touch, which you maybe don't expect from a big lad like he is. I
Scored a couple of goals from outside the box this season. Like
Yeah.
he's got everything
Really
to his
like-
game.
I would like
really
to
like
see him get more shots. You know, like it's hard.
But he is playing for Ipswich.
I know,
which is
I
the
know.
issue,
That's
yeah.
that's the issue.
Yeah.
Like this is the one difficult thing about Djellab.
Yes.
You're like, we are betting, like watching him, that he can be like a 3.5 shot per 90 player.
Yeah.
When at the moment I feel like he's been more to like 2.5, which is like not my dream.
He's a little bit older as well. He's
My
20,
point
he
is-
is 22.
22.
Not to say it's like stupidly old, but like
11 goals for Ipswich is seriously impressive.
But
like,
you
this
can
season.
imagine
That's
that,
like
if Chelsea or Arsenal were like, he's going to come and be like our starting centre forward. Chelsea maybe less so because they've got Jackson. But if Arsenal were like, he's going to be our starting centre forward, there would be that little question in my mind of like, can this guy add a shot per 90 to what he's already doing?
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, like it's definitely a gamble I'd take, but it is a gamble.
yeah,
And
bear in
it's
mind the way
also-
teams set up against Arsenal as well.
this is what I
It's a
mean.
good
Yeah,
chance,
that's going to be an interesting side of it, where your gameplay now isn't you on the break going one with a defender or whatever it
Yeah.
might be. It's you being having to beat a low block or whatever it might
Well,
be.
that's when you maybe want to talk to like people who coached him at like
Yes,
international
yes.
youth.
But then I
level
do
and all
feel
that
like
kind
you've
stuff,
seen
you
some
know,
of his
where-
his poaching goals in the box where I thought
Yeah.
he does
and he's
pretty
physically
well there.
like physically he's
He's
a match.
6'1",
And his movement
he's
is good
for
huge.
centre-backs.
He's a proper matchup. He's a really, really kind of old school
that's-
element to him.
But these are the things we're seeing. So what you were talking about like his kind of like ball striking basically, and his physicality. Like these are common threads through most of these strikers we're seeing.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Especially like
Like
Sesko.
like Gyökeres, Šeško, Osimhen. These are like ball dominating, ball striking, like huge physical problem centre backs. Someone like Ekitike is a totally different.
It's kind of baby Isak, isn't he, a little bit?
But he's also like a transition player, and he doesn't really have that strength.
Jonathan David's not really a striker, is he?
Yeah, but David's a free, so like he's a bit of a special case. But it's interesting. There seems to people kind of want that centre forward who does just occupy centre backs, and when he gets it, like just leathers it.
Yeah,
like, it's kind of what you need.
I feel definitely with Arsenal, I feel like they need that someone who's going to take a bit more gamble outside the box.
You still got the option for Kai, don't you? Right, like worst comes to worst, you play Kai's Havertz still there. If Gabriel Jesus is,
they talked about Nwaneri. Like I also wonder sometimes. Like I do think like if you've got Nwaneri and you've got Saka, playing one of those up front, I think would actually be kind of an interesting prospect.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
Against
Saka up
against
front, wow.
Against certain teams, I think that's quite interesting because like if you don't have a centre back who can stand up physically to those players, though Saka can stand up physically to quite a lot of people, but like not in the air.
Yeah.
Then you might as well play a different kind of game
Yeah.
where you're like, can this guy get shots off really quickly? And we know
He can.
that someone like Saka can. Kind of the Jota thing. Jota's better in the air, but like Jota's thing is also that he's just like a very smart mover and he can rip a shot
Shoots
with
really
a
well.
very, very
Well, his
little
goal last
backlift.
night was like literally the most archetypal Jota goal you'll ever see.
Yeah,
He's
it's
got
really
that ability to just jink away and then find the space. I feel like Saka has also got that.
Okay, Liam Djellab done. Ben, who's your final one?
I've kind of got two. I kind of got two. One's a bit more of a fun one, and it's also a bit of a selfish one of just wanting to see him go somewhere and be the main man. And that was Rodrigo, but I don't see that happen. I feel like a lot of people have spoken about that. Just want to see him want to go away from Madrid and kind of just be that guy somewhere. But I also feel like that conversation is a little bit overdone sometimes because he plays a really important role for Madrid, and I feel like he does probably feel valued.
I thought this summer he'd leave.
Yeah.
Last summer, I thought this summer he'd leave.
I always had like
kind of not worked out that way.
I always
really.
thought like City for me, but then again, obviously not now because I think they've
Liverpool.
got Savinho and Doku. Liverpool would be great if they lost Salah, but I've actually gone for Noni Madueke.
Cool.
Because I feel like
Pat will love this.
I feel like he's
My boy.
I feel like he's massively underappreciated at Chelsea. Like I don't think he's an amazing winger, but what he does do is he gets shots off. He's direct. He's aggressive. He is Chelsea are more of a threat when he's playing, and I think you've missed him while he's been out injured. And I also think with like Esteval coming in and the abundance of wide players that Chelsea have got, and probably will look to bring in another one in the summer because it's kind of what Chelsea do. I like the idea of him going somewhere in the Prem where he's maybe a little bit more valued, and I actually could see Newcastle as an option as a right winger because I feel like
I want this to happen so much. He'd be so good. Do you not think? Like he's exactly the. I think this is such a good move.
I feel like
Don't you?
No, I actually do tend to agree.
I feel like with Newcastle, like I feel like Bakayoko gets spoken about a lot.
Yeah.
But I feel like with Madueke, like you've got a Prem-proven option that can drive forward on the counter-attack, can create from out wide, that although that's not necessarily what his game is fully about, he's about getting shots off and being direct. And in a counter-attacking system like Newcastle, I feel like with Gordon, Isak, if he does stay, and Madueke, I really like that as a front three. Again, it's kind of just bolstering options. They're still going to have Harvey Barnes, like especially if they are going to be in Europe next year because they won the League Cup, so they're going to be in Europe to some degree. I think he'd be perfect for them. He's so direct. Eddie Howe, I think, would love him. He does. I've seen a lot of Chelsea fans kind of a bit divided on like his defensive work rate. So it'd be interesting to see what you think of that, Zach, as a Chelsea fan. But like, I feel like he splits a lot of opinion, but I actually think he's a lot better than people think, and I think he's quite underappreciated. I feel like Newcastle, he would get those flowers a lot more.
yeah,
That's definitely.
I from
That
my
defensive
point of
work
view,
rate is the question. Right?
Yeah.
Can he do that?
So-
because Chelsea are not a great pressing team, but Newcastle, it's like their whole thing.
Yeah.
He has
and also
moments-
They're so solid when they sit back. It's like they'll leave one up, but then two playing off him. So when they go, they can just like
his biggest issue for defensive bit is he switches off.
Yeah.
He will do
It's
the
not the
tracking
work
back.
rate,
He'll
yeah,
do the work rate. The issue, I think of the City game where we lost 2-0 in the 2-1, where we went 1-0 up, went away.
But kind of got taken apart.
But their goal comes from Noni. Like he's tracking his man,
Oh, it was
he's
the
dropping
Gvardiol
back.
run, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yep, and then he just switches off, and then Gavardio's free.
Sure.
Like it's more that issue. However, like Eddie Howe is someone who is getting the best out of the
I was going to say,
players.
with a coach that would like drill that into him, and is
I
so
could
good at
see
getting
Eddie
the best
Howe
out of his
taking
players.
him to a really like the next level of Noni Madueke, and suddenly like it wouldn't shock me if he did move. And I think it'd be a fee which is probably reasonable as well. I think you're probably looking close to 40.
Yeah.
I think to get him. I think you could see this guy next season. People go, "Oh, how did Chelsea let him go?" Or whatever, because he ends up becoming
I can see that.
the having a fantastic season for Newcastle. I think the other thing he struggles with. so much is about Cole Palmer at Chelsea, and obviously so much is about Isak at Newcastle. But Isak, I think, blends a little bit better with the front line. Whereas for Palmer, everything is about like getting the ball to Palmer and letting him have the exactly. So I can see Noni maybe linking up with, and to be fair, he links up with Palmer pretty well, but linking up with Isak really well as well. From my perspective, and I would say I'm always maybe the optimist of a Chelsea fan, or always have a better outlook. I always think I've always liked the player. Yeah. There has been issues and there has been slight things where people get annoyed, and the work rate being that him switches off is an issue. But I think other Chelsea fans will be are a lot more critical of him than I am.
Yeah, take the money in.
Exactly, yeah. And like, Chelsea spent 20 million on him. Like, if they can get 40 for him, I think that's a pretty fair deal all round. And Chelsea have about 3 wingers coming in the summer anyway.
I also think
any
club that is looking at Semenyo in the summer. I know Semenyo's got more versatility of being able to play right.
Dropped
and
off
left.
Recently as well.
He has. I think they should be if they're looking for that kind of winger, like high shot volume, like good ball carrier. They should be looking at Madueke as well. Yeah, 100%. I know Madueke is more wedded to that right hand side. Semenyo can kind of play off both, but I think he'd be a good alternative for someone that's looking at him.
I think it's a really good shout, Ben. Actually, mate.
Thanks,
it's a really, really good shout.
Appreciate that.
Okay, Patrick.
I expect Djellab will move.
Yeah.
I'm more excited about Madueke. I just think with Madueke, like, I look at him and I think this is quite a frustrating player, but the upside is incredible to me.
You can see it there, like it is there.
And he's like, you know, when I look at someone like Bakayoko, I'm like, does Bakayoko have the top end physicality? I don't think he does. No. I don't think he has the top end pace, and I certainly don't think he has the strength.
He's never moved me, Bakayoko, really.
Yeah, I think he's a good player, but like I look at Madueke and I think Madueke can just skin anyone. Like when and he does it often. And even this season where people have been like he's been very, you know, he's very up and down this season. If you look at players carrying the ball into the penalty area, which is obviously a good thing to do, he is always up at the top end of this. Like, he is a guy who routinely does this and gets high numbers of shots as well from wide, which is just so valuable. Like, that's why with Chelsea recently, when you've had Jackson, Palmer, and Madueke out, those are 1, 2, and 3 for shots.
Yeah, literally.
Like, and 1, 2, and 3 for expected goals and assists per 92. Like, that is such a loss for them. But he is a little element of chaos. And if you play a very rigid system, so for example, if Villa could pick him up, that would be great. Yeah. Because like Villa often are a bit boring, and they're like, right, what we're going to do, especially in a big game, is we're going to like try and shell and hope we get through it, and hope one of our forwards, you know, like Watkins or Rodgers, produces a moment of magic, and they can do that. But Madueke is one of those guys as well, who you're like, he might just produce something out of nothing, because he has so many different kinds of ability. Like he is a good dribbler, he is a good creator, and he gets shots. So I don't know. I want to see Noni Madueke play every week, and I do think Newcastle is just like the obvious home for him. Like homegrown, good age, like Premier League proven, needs somewhere to be loved, and it is a big club with a huge stadium and a massive fan base. And if Isak stays as well, then I would be looking at, if I were Madueke, I'd be like, is it that much of a downgrade for me to go to Newcastle, where I've got like maybe Bruno feeding me the ball and Isak and Gordon in the box? Absolutely not. I think that's as good as the Chelsea situation.
With his right back being Tino Livramento as well. Like, and being managed by Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe is such a good manager.
Well, Livramento and Hall, like he may know too, right?
Maybe from England days,
So, no, certainly he'll know Hall. But yeah, I don't
there was
know.
A crossover Hall actually.
That's interesting to me. But I think Newcastle are a really enticing club to join.
Yeah.
Just because the scale of the club, you know, in the stadium, all that kind of stuff, I think is really exciting.
Yeah, we'll be interested, obviously, with what Newcastle can actually do in the summer.
Yeah.
Obviously with finances and things like that. But there we have it, guys. Those are the players that need to leave your club this summer. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I realise I left the aircon on, and so it's basically like the Arctic here. Ben, I wish you better luck today, mate.
Thanks,
As
mate.
we said,
Spurs.
The players are back. Cole Palmer, Jackson, and Noni are back.
Spurs are fully fit for the first time in
true.
All season.
When was the last time Spurs beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge?
2018.
And when was it before that? Never.
Probably, yeah.
It was actually never. In the Premier League, anyway.
Just put the 2-0 to Chelsea in the bag. And let's move on. It's going to It's so
really
obvious.
that hard to win Stamford Bridge, though. He's pissed.
Calm down. Chelsea
Ben,
thank you so much for joining me, matey. Where can people at home find your stuff?
TikTok, YouTube, just search up my name, and the FC Bottle Job podcast as well. So
fantastic. Patrick Van Straten, you?
Where can people find me?
Oh, just how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I feel good. I'm cold. Man Down Podcast is my new venture with Ted Knutson from the Transfer Flow. This is actually a non-football venture. It's in my other capacity as a psychotherapist, which is like my day job. So it's all about principally men, but not just men's mental health, well-being, all that kind of stuff.
What's something you spoke about this week?
Well, recently we did a dating thing. So Ted's dating, and he went through his dating profile before and after his friend, who is like a dating coach, looked at it. And so that was really funny for me. Like, here are the pictures before, and we've got like audio clips of her laughing at him. Which is great. But we've done that recently. We talked about like attachment theory, like that's more of a kind of therapy type thing. We've talked about like making friendships as an adult. We've talked about sex. Like we talk about loads of different stuff. So yeah, it's a good one.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Well, that will be linked down below in the description if you would like to check that out. Please, if you're listening on Spotify, rate this 5 stars. It really does help us. If you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, you also watch on Spotify as well. Like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.